There's talk amongst Bitcoiners about why the price hasn't moved much. I mean, we're down $20,000 from the top, 25,000, and just ranging around here. So there's been talk about price manipulation, or not necessarily that it's like a conspiracy or illegal or anything, but just as an outcome of Bitcoin becoming integrated into the traditional and larger financial markets, et cetera. They have some control over the price, right? Or be able to suppress it in some kind of financial engineering techniques or whatever. So I don't know enough about the intricacies of the financial system to say whether or not that's a possibility. Is this just a matter of this stuff was priced in, and so we're going to range here for a while until we see bigger buys or the United States starting to accumulate proactively? Or is there something going on here where Bitcoin being a part of the Wall Street financial system makes the price move differently? There's some dynamics there that make the price moves different. I would love to hear what you guys think about that.
Yeah. My view on this is it's just because equities have been absolutely cooked since January. You just have huge declines in both indexes and individual leadership stock names. The Mag 7 is like down 15 to 30% across the board. Like, these are huge moves that just drag down broad markets. And then it's coupled with part of what you said. I'm not saying the SBR is priced in, but them just not selling the existing coins was priced in. They need to actually make the buys. And
which
that's
we've been saying that since basically since the election.
Correct.
Yeah, the buy is what's important. Yeah.
The buy is what's important. And I've had a lot of conversations with people very close to this, and I am very confident that this happens. So I think you're going to see this. And I think you're also going to see these corporate adoption, game stuff. But it's, again, we're just in this weird moment where it hasn't actually happened yet. And the S&P is down 2% today. That's a huge, massive move. I didn't even know that. We're basically back to the lows. Yeah, we're like 1% above the lows. So this recent rally completely retraced.
Yeah, I generally think it's three reasons why Bitcoin tends to trade in a correlated way to more traditional markets, namely equities. And I think that is mostly what's happening here, because if you look at the longer term fundamentals, it's hard not to be super bullish here. But I generally look at it as three things. One is that a lot of people who are trading on the margin, remember, if you're a long-term holder of Bitcoin, you could make the argument that, okay, you're taking your action by just holding your Bitcoin and not selling it, fine. But like, there are people who on the margin will dictate the Bitcoin price by being the quote unquote fast money that come in and trade on daily news and decide if they're going to buy more, sell more. That's going to change the price on the margin. And those people view Bitcoin as a speculative investment that is correlated with the NASDAQ. So there is a self-fulfilling prophecy here to a certain extent in short time periods. I'm not saying forever, but in short time periods, it's this self-reinforcing wheel of those people believe that to be true. Equities sell off, they trade accordingly, and it's self-reinforcing in the short term. That's reason number one. Reason number two is that Bitcoin is highly liquid, 24/7, totally fungible, sell it at the drop of a hat. And then reason number three, I've witnessed this firsthand, is that when people's equity positions are down big, it's very hard to convince them to say, hey, you should make a big investment into Bitcoin right now. That's just, even though that's probably the best time for them to do it, like 2022 was the perfect example, it's just very hard to pitch someone when their equities are getting crushed to say, make a new, I'm talking new Bitcoin investor, someone who doesn't have a position. They're just unlikely to be that marginal dollar into Bitcoin when their equities are down. So that's three main reasons why I think Bitcoin trades not in lockstep, but with a high degree of correlation to equities.
Yeah,
100%.
Yep. People want to believe that Bitcoin has decoupled itself from the traditional financial markets. You always hear people talking about that, and we're not there yet. Clearly, it's moving around like it's a risk asset still. So it still has a high degree of correlation here. And when the NASDAQ starts dumping, you see Bitcoin move along with it. And because it's a risk asset, people are selling off more of that than they will of some of their other investments. I think that for right now, this is just going to be the norm for a little bit. But I would argue that most of this news is absolutely not getting priced in right now. And I think part of that is because people are getting news fatigue, quite frankly. You're getting so much good news coming out that it's just overwhelming you, but you're not seeing the price move, and people are sitting back and they're like, I'll believe it when I see it. Same thing with what we're saying with GameStop. I think that that the SBR, we thought that was coming. It seemed pretty clear that they were going to make something happen. Then it came as an executive order and everyone went, that can be reversed. So is that a big deal or not? I'm like, that's a massive deal. And now the question becomes, are they going to accumulate? And when you look at the people that are in charge of figuring that out, I would put a very high probability on them actually acquiring Bitcoin now. I didn't originally think that. Originally, I thought we would just get the win if all they did was keep the Bitcoin they had. That would legitimize it enough, give Bitcoin enough air cover that it could really start to grow on its own. But when you've got Lutnick and Besant in charge of figuring out how to buy Bitcoin, I'm not betting against those guys. But I think that the market is now waiting for the biggest piece of news to come out before this thing goes and reprices again. And I think that is the signal that the market's waiting for. More companies are coming out. They're getting used to hearing about companies in Bitcoin. So that's not as flashy as it used to be. So I think that you're getting some waning excitement for new companies coming in, unless we get some mega companies that show up. That'll still be a big deal. But I do think that because the news has been so frequent and it's just been out there constantly for the last 5-6 months, I think people are a little fatigued around it. And when the markets are jittery, they just tend to trade it in lockstep with the markets at the moment until they get that decoupling moment.
I think there's two events on the nation state adoption level, at the United States in particular. One is the executive branch finding budget neutral ways, Besant and Lutnick finding budget neutral ways to acquire Bitcoin through executive action, not requiring legislative action. Congress holds the purse strings. So that's where the big money is. The Bitcoin Act that Lummis is spearheading, if that passes, and there's definitely more momentum behind it now because of executive leadership on Bitcoin, that the chances of it passing by the end of the summer or so before this particular session, much higher than it was a month ago. And that then would be, I could even see the executive finding some amount of money, maybe it's billions of dollars to buy some Bitcoin. If you enact a legislation, which is much harder to undo, if there is an administration that's anti-Bitcoin following this one, they could just issue an executive order, sell all the Bitcoin from the strategic reserve potentially. But if there's legislation there, you'd have to go through Congress to repeal it and everything. So it's much more sticky. That would be really the ultimate signal. I don't see how that could not just set off the suddenly phase of Bitcoin adoption. So that's what I'm looking for. I would not be surprised even if we start buying some Bitcoin that it doesn't go completely nuts. Wouldn't be surprised about that. People might be waiting for the Bitcoin Act.
Yeah, I think it's just, you have just this incredibly heavy equities market, and just none of this news is concrete enough to overpower that. You would need something really solid, and we just haven't gotten it yet. And that's the thing, like, even if you're bullish on this happening, if you think it's not going to happen for a month and you think the S&P is going to be down another 5% by then, why buy now? It's rational. Why buy now? There's no reason to. There's no reason to take that price risk when you think, even if it's happening and you're super bullish on it happening, it's like, yeah, we're a month or two out from this. And yeah, I agree with what Ben said. I think it's both Besant, Lutnick. You have this team of people that it makes all the sense in the world for them to do this. And also just from what I've heard, like, they are actively workshopping proposals right now, people. Like the Treasury and the Commerce I've confirmed this from a variety of people, they're actively circulating proposals.
I mean, Bo Hines is being very clear about this as well.
And the thing is there's this error that everyone has made this year. Everyone makes the same error. And it's saying, I don't believe what the administration is telling me. 25% tariffs, there's no way they're going to do it. They do it and everyone's shocked, right? He's not going to free Ross. He frees Ross. They're not going to do the strategic reserve. They do the strategic reserve. Like, your biggest alpha this year is just taking them at face value. You've had 100% hit rate if you did that. There's been no alpha in being like, no, they're lying. They're not going to do it. Yeah, maybe one day that happens. Maybe one day they don't do it. But like, you've missed 100% of your swings if that's been your mindset this year.
Yeah, and it's not just the administration or like what you think about Trump, or if you don't trust Trump to follow through on doing something, that might be the case. But Bitcoin, the incentive to promote Bitcoin adoption is human greed, right? So you can rely on human greed. There's a big incentive, lots of profit, lots of money to be made here, not just for the United States, but Trump's family holds Bitcoin too, and they're not getting rid of it. So, you know,
on the board of MetaPlanet now.
Yeah, look at this. Yeah, so Bitcoin incentivizes its own growth, and it's establishing humanitarian money through human greed. So that's also a massive force at play here. You don't necessarily need to trust these politicians, right? Because Bitcoin has such a pure and almost guaranteed incentive for adoption by playing off human greed.